In the corporate push for efficiency, companies are laying off tens of thousands of workers while spending billions to rapidly deploy artificial intelligence. But according to MIT research analyzing hundreds of enterprise deployments, 95% of generative AI pilot programs produced zero measurable impact on the profit and loss statement. We have seen this disconnect before. When factory owners replaced steam power with early electric motors in the 1880s, productivity flatlined for decades because they kept the exact same convoluted, belt-driven factory layouts. A century later, companies put a desktop computer on every desk and waited for a financial miracle that didn't arrive. As the Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Solow observed in 1987, you can see the computer age everywhere, but in the productivity statistics. This chart shows the historical adoption of information technology. Notice the gap between the blue adoption curve and the green productivity gain curve. It historically takes 20 years for businesses to actually realize gains from a new technology. The technology itself rarely fails. The delay occurs because companies attempt to layer new operating speed onto a foundation that wasn't built for it. 2,000 years ago, a warning was given about this exact problem. You do not pour new wine into old wineskins. New wine actively ferments. As it expands, it creates immense internal pressure. If you pour it into a rigid, dried-out container that has already stretched to limit, the skin shatters and you lose both the container and the wine. Those old containers served a season. Hierarchies, functional silos, and strict approval processes successfully created order for the industrial age, allowing thousands of people to coordinate across markets. Today, artificial intelligence is the expanding new wine. When forced into rigid corporate containers, that energy is stifled by layers of management and fragmented data. The essential leadership challenge is building an organization capable of holding this power without breaking. Redesigning the container begins with the business model. Legacy thinking looks at a workflow and asks how to make it 10% cheaper. AI native thinking asks how to guarantee a completely different outcome for the customer. Heavy machinery manufacturers like John Deere are shifting from selling tractors to selling autonomous crop yields. Pharmaceutical companies are moving from physical lab tests to algorithmic protein simulation. They are using intelligence to make their old products obsolete. The second layer that must stretch is organizational structure. The traditional corporate hierarchy was built to manage human communication limits. It required heavy layers of middle management just to move data between isolated departments. Because AI can instantly process and share information across an entire company, the cognitive justification for silos is gone. Companies are restructuring into cross-functional outcome pods, where AI acts as a central nervous system and leaders manage parameters rather than moving data. If your teams are divided by the functions they perform rather than the goals they achieve, your very architecture is blocking your technological potential. The third organizational wineskin involves our processes. Many organizations fall into the trap of using AI to automate isolated tasks, leaving workflows broken. Look at this comparison for a sales process. On the left, bolting on AI to draft follow-up emails saves a little time, but the bottleneck remains. On the right, systemic redesign uses autonomous agents to book meetings directly, eliminating the manual steps entirely. MIT researchers identified a phenomenon here called the task composition effect. If you only automate the easy, repetitive parts of a job, the human worker is left with only the most complex, emotionally exhausting edge cases. This creates burnout, leading into the fourth and deepest layer, organizational culture. When a company rewards busyness and volume over intelligent experimentation, it creates a silence tax. Frontline workers spot massive inefficiencies, but keep ideas to themselves, assuming leadership will dismiss them anyway. Real culture reflects the behaviors the system repeatedly pays, measures, and rewards. There is a clear path to using AI that elevates us from simple task execution to high-level strategic orchestration. Simply firing managers and flattening a hierarchy without redesigning decision rights does not make a company agile. It just creates chaos with fewer adults in the room to guide the work. As the software takes over the predictable outputs, uniquely human skills, handling complex exceptions, applying ethical judgment, and building trust across teams become a company's true strategic advantage. Artificial intelligence acts as a mirror, exposing the legacy assumptions and communication limits that still define modern corporations. The new wine is already here. The mandate for modern leadership is to have the courage to build the new containers that can hold it.